So while I was getting ready to film the second episode, I was thinking of a dozen things that I could talk about and kind of just get out of my head and talk about with you guys. But before I got into like a specific topic, oh, so on the thumbnail, this is maybe the only religious thing that I have. Is this rock from like a service like pilgrimage I took? So I like I was like looking for a cross or something like that, or like the Torah to like put in the thumbnail. But this is all I got. I think I have like a Mormon Bible around here somewhere. This is all I got. This is what you get. So while I was getting ready to shoot the second video here, I was thinking of 100 different topics I could talk about that are kind of floating around in my head, and I would like to get them out on video. Before I get into like a specific topic, I thought it would probably be best to give everyone a rundown of my like spiritual, religious, afterlife journey. I thought I would just lay out briefly in a short video kind of what I've gone through in my life. I think if you're aware of where I've been and like where my head is, it might make it might put some things into perspective for some people. Growing up, I was raised Roman Catholic. We did the whole thing, like go to mass every Sunday. When I was younger, I just didn't like it. You know, who likes waking up? The morning cartoons are on. Why are you dragging my ass to sit in a pew and listen to some old man in robes talk to me? I just wasn't really about it when I was a kid. But my parents, you know, it was important to my parents that they like instill this viewpoint into me from a young age. So I don't even know if my parents were that into it, to be honest, but they kept taking me and my sister to Sunday service every Sunday. Eventually, I got older, which is weird, right? Like, people get older? What? It was late, like grade school, going into high school. Like, I was probably 8th grade freshman year, so maybe 14 years old. I actually started to think about the afterlife and, you know, what that could mean, and so much going through the motions anymore on a Sunday. I was actually thinking about things. And at this time, I actually enjoyed going to, Catholics call it mass or service or whatever you want to call it. It's all the same to me. So I started enjoying going to mass at this time in my life, and I would listen to the homily or the talk that the priest gives to the clergy. Usually there's like a lesson in it from the Bible or something like that. This wisdom, you know, that would be like laid under these stories, I started paying attention to, and I started liking going to mass. So this continued in high school. I started becoming very involved in the Catholic faith. I would go on service trips all around the country and out of the country, and, you know, help impoverished areas. We didn't do, just for the record, I feel like this is important to say, I have nothing against people taking pilgrimages or service trips and like talking to people about religion or their views, but these trips that I went on, there was no converting. Like, we were not like going to these villages, helping out the poor and saying, if you don't believe in Jesus, you know, we're out of here. It wasn't anything like that. In fact, it was some of the best trips I've taken in my life. It taught me just a ton of stuff. I went all around the country, United States, that's where I am. Went down to Mexico and helped some impoverished areas down there and met a lot of people and did a lot of great things. It was just a beautiful time in my life. And during all this, I was still going to mass. I was still heavily involved in the Catholic faith. I was praying rosaries every night. I had an adoration shift at 2 a.m. If you're not familiar with the Catholic faith, If you're not familiar with the Catholic faith, Catholics practice this ceremony called adoration, which Catholics believe that the host, which is what you take at communion, after it's blessed, it's an actual part of Jesus Christ. And they take one of these hosts that have been blessed and put it in like this kind of ornate thing that holds it, and they put it in a room, and people are welcome to come in and just be with it. It's almost like a Catholic form of meditation. You just come into this room, there's like reading materials or like nice music, and you just sit in there with the supposed body of Jesus in the host. And I was all about that. I loved adoration. The Catholic rule is someone is supposed to be with it 24 hours a day. So I would just sign up for the 2 a.m. shift once a week, and I would go into this church. I had like a key. I would go into this church. It's completely empty. Honestly, kind of creepy. And sometimes my friends would come along, but I would just sit in there and essentially meditate before I knew what meditation was. After high school, I went to a public college. I went, if it's not a surprise by now, I went to a private Catholic high school. Catholic faith was great. I don't have any ill feelings towards any of this stuff at all. In fact, it's a beautiful foundation from where I am now. I really respect it. Anyway, got out of high school, go to a public college, and obviously it's not like my views were shook. It's not like that or anything. But I was exposed to things that I wasn't. You know, when you spend your time around people that think a certain way, and you remove yourself from that and go around another group of people that think differently, their views are going to bounce off you. Like, that's just how society works. I entered college. I still practiced Catholicism, so I would still go to the Catholic Mass about halfway through college. My degree is in psychology, so once I got heavily involved in psych, I was exposed to all of these sciences, and I was just very, very heavily in the sciences. Really, at this time in my life, I really began thinking about, like, is there a God? Like, maybe God doesn't exist. I didn't have any ill feelings towards people that still practice at this time. I was just, like, in thought a lot about, you know, maybe us existing, me and you, maybe we're just biological randomness that happened on this floating rock in space. You know, I started thinking things like that. This presence that I always thought was present in my life, maybe it's not there. And I felt very kind of isolated and alone. But it also felt good to entertain different ideas. So at this time, I became an atheist in my life, or like a very strong agnostic, if anything. I was kind of like, maybe God exists, but my definition of what God was at the time was very different. When I became agnostic in college, or atheist, I know those two, like, very, like, agnostics, like, do I believe or not? Atheist is just like, I don't believe. I was somewhere in the middle of those two. Like, I would have days where I'm like, there's no God, and then I would have other days where I'm like, maybe there is, but I'm not sure. So I was somewhere between agnostic and atheist. During that time, when I had my, like, agnostic days, I would think, you know, maybe God is not this, like, storytelling person, and maybe it's just like a force in the universe. Like, my view of God became very scientific. The biggest turning point in my life was late college. I was going into my senior year, and I went out. I'll have a whole nother video on this. I was a big skateboarder, longboarder in college. I would longboard to get to classes and stuff. I'll keep this very brief because I could probably do like 5 videos on this topic alone. Essentially what happened is I was just so heartbroken over this girl, this relationship that didn't work out, and I was just kind of like, I wasn't like pissed off, but I just kind of had like a chip on my shoulder. And the rule with skating is like, never skate alone in case anything bad happens. Well, this day I was just kind of like, you know, I'm upset. So I went out by myself and I went skating, longboarding down this giant hill. I was wearing a helmet, luckily. Probably wouldn't be here if I wasn't. But I was going down this hill and I hit a rock. I just wiped out hard. I ruined the whole side of my arm and my side. I fell on that side. My helmet broke my fall with my head. Anyway, I blacked out for a second, got up, looked at my injuries, and was just like, well, this is the kind of day I'm having. Went home, showered, went over to my friend's house, and there I started feeling really bad. I passed out. I turned blue. I wasn't breathing. The paramedics said that it was probably sudden cardiac arrest, which can happen with like head traumas. The paramedics came, took me to the hospital. They did CAT scans on me. I had already come back at this time. I came back about when we got to the hospital. They did CAT scans on me, everything like that. All the tests checked out. The doctor said you have a concussion, but you're released tonight. And I went home, and that was it. It was really, really weird because I was banged up. They actually asked me when I arrived to the hospital, they actually asked me, where's your motorcycle at? Like I had road rash like that. And I was like, no, I was on a longboard. Anyway, I'll keep this very brief. When I quote unquote died, my consciousness continued. And I was fully me, and I was thinking clearly, and I interacted with a presence. And then I decided to come back. I wasn't ready to like die yet. So through this, I learned about near-death experiences, which is a phenomenon around the world. And I'm kind of like low-key obsessed with this topic. It's extremely fascinating to me. Out of college, I read more about near-death experiences, and I don't think, personally, near-death experiences 100% confirm an afterlife and a God. There's some people that do. There is some really strong evidence that points to something is happening. The fun thing about this world that we're in is I don't think anyone's ever gonna like know 100%. Like no one's gonna ever have absolute proof of there is no God or there is a God, which is kind of the fun part about life, in my opinion. So after this, I reevaluated myself. I became very spiritual. And by the way, it's worth noting that I'm a huge skeptic, so this experience that I had, it's not like it happened and I was like, oh, that's how it is. Like, there's a God now. It wasn't like that. I grappled with it for years, what happened to me. But I finally accepted that, I think something more than meets the eye happened. And it's after everything I've read, I personally believe that there's something more after we die on this earth. So after I accepted my near-death experience, my religious spiritual views changed a lot. I continued to not practice any kind of religion. I really started to spend a lot of time in nature. I started to meditate more. So that's where I'm at now. I don't practice any faith. So yeah, I just wanted to give everyone kind of an idea of my journey. So all the videos from here on out, you'll know where my headspace is at. Thanksgiving just happened. I know not every country celebrates Thanksgiving, but if you do, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you don't, I hope you had a wonderful week. I just hope everyone's doing great. So the question for this video, scroll up, go down these comments. That's what I'm all about. I don't need no subs. I don't need no likes. Just talk to me. What I want to know from you is, what is your journey? Like, what's happened to you that you want to talk about? Let me know your beliefs. I'm not judgmental at all. If you watched the first video, if you tell me you're Catholic or you're Jewish or whatever it is, if you're atheist, there's no judgment. There's no judgment. In fact, no one can prove anything 100%, so if you come at me with a different view than my own, it's not like I think less of you. Neither one of us can prove anything, so I welcome all conversation. I hope everyone's having a great day, and I'll see you later. Love more.
Bye.